In a world where companies can crush careers with a single stroke of a pen, one woman thought she'd lost everything until she decided to expose the truth. They fired me for low sales, erasing my access to the system before I could even defend myself. But they forgot one crucial detail. I still had the real numbers. What happened next? Let's just say that when you manufacture lies to destroy someone's life, you better make sure they don't have receipts. You won't believe how this ends. My name is Rachel Donovan, and until 6 weeks ago, I thought I had built something unshakable at Silverstream Technologies. 34 years old, single, and completely devoted to a career I'd spent 8 years cultivating. That was me. Every morning, I'd arrive at our Harborview, Oregon office by 7:30 a.m., coffee in hand, ready to conquer another day in the cutthroat world of enterprise software sales. Silverstream wasn't just any tech company. With its gleaming glass towers overlooking the Columbia River, it represented everything ambitious professionals in the Pacific Northwest aspired to. The lobby's marble floors reflected the early morning sunlight, and the open-plan offices buzzed with the energy of 500 employees all chasing their quarterly targets. In this ecosystem, you either thrived or got swallowed whole. I thrived. Or at least, I used to. My desk sat on the 14th floor, positioned perfectly between the sales pit and the executive corridor. From there, I could see both worlds. The hungry junior reps making cold calls with desperate enthusiasm, and the polished seniors gliding into strategy meetings. I belonged to the latter group, having clawed my way up through sheer determination and an uncanny ability to read clients' unspoken needs. "Morning, Rach." My colleague Jennifer would always greet me with genuine warmth. "Another day, another dollar, right?" "Another day, another enterprise contract," I'd reply, settling into my ergonomic chair that I'd fought HR for 3 months to get approved. The thing about Silverstream was that beneath its progressive exterior, the kombucha on tap, the meditation rooms, the flexible work policies, lurked an old-school mentality about performance. Numbers were God. Your worth was measured in closed deals, revenue generated, and client retention rates. The massive digital dashboard in our department displayed real-time sales figures like some dystopian scoreboard, updating every 15 minutes with a subtle chime that made everyone's head turn. I consistently ranked in the top 3. My secret? I didn't just sell software, I solved problems. While others pitched features, I spent hours understanding each client's pain points, their internal politics, their budget constraints. My presentations weren't just slide decks, they were roadmaps to transformation. Everything changed when Mark Ellison arrived. Mark swept in 4 months ago as our new regional director. All sharp suits and sharper smiles. Harvard MBA, they whispered. Poached from a Fortune 500 competitor. He had that particular brand of confidence that came from never having truly failed at anything. During his first all-hands meeting, he stood at the podium, his salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, and declared, "Excellence isn't an aspiration here, it's the minimum standard." The room had erupted in nervous applause. I'd clapped too, though something in my gut twisted uncomfortably. From day one, Mark and I existed in an unspoken tension. Maybe it was the way I questioned his new territory restructuring plan during a team meeting, pointing out that it would damage carefully cultivated client relationships. Or perhaps it was how my established clients would specifically request me, bypassing his attempts to redistribute accounts to his newly hired favorites. "Donovan," he'd say, drawing out my last name like it left a bad taste. "We need team players here, not solo artists." "Of course, Mark," I'd respond, maintaining eye contact. That's why my client satisfaction scores benefit the entire team's average. The office atmosphere grew heavier with each passing week. Mark instituted new policies, mandatory 7 a.m. pipeline reviews, surprise account audits, public performance evaluations. The meditation rooms gathered dust as stress levels soared. Jennifer started keeping Tums in her desk drawer. Tom from the back-end team developed a nervous tic. Yet through it all, my numbers remained stellar. Q3 closed with me exceeding quota by 180%. My client in Seattle, a multinational logistics firm, Signed a 3-year extension worth $2.8 million. The dashboard chimed my victories like a church bell, impossible to ignore. But I noticed things. Subtle things. My access to certain prospect databases would mysteriously glitch. Meeting invites for strategic planning sessions would arrive hours after they'd started. My name would be inadvertently left off important email chains. "You're being paranoid," Jennifer said one evening as we shared takeout in the break room. "You're untouchable. Your numbers speak for themselves." I wanted to believe her. In the world of sales, numbers were supposed to be the ultimate truth, the indisputable evidence of value. But as I'd soon learn, even numbers could be twisted, manipulated, and weaponized by those who controlled the narrative. The Harborview rains started falling harder that autumn, matching the growing darkness I felt approaching. I just didn't know that the storm had already been orchestrated, and I was standing directly in its path. The email arrived at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mandatory performance review, immediate attendance required, conference room A. No signature, just Mark's auto-generated footer with his countless certifications listed like military medals. My hands stayed steady as I closed my laptop. Jennifer caught my eye from across the sales floor, her expression questioning. I shrugged, projecting a confidence I didn't feel. The walk to conference room A felt longer than usual, my heels clicking against the polished concrete like a countdown. I pushed open the frosted glass door to find them already assembled, a tribunal in expensive suits. Mark sat at the head of the table, flanked by Sharon from HR and David Kim, the VP of Sales who usually worked from the San Francisco office. 3 manila folders lay perfectly aligned before them. A single chair waited on the opposite side, isolated like an island. "Rachel, please sit," Mark said, his voice carrying that false concern I'd heard him use when firing the junior reps last month. I sat, maintaining eye contact. I wasn't aware we had a review scheduled. "My quarterly review isn't for another." "This isn't a scheduled review," Mark interrupted, sliding one of the folders across the mahogany table. "This is a termination meeting." The words hung in the air like a slap. I didn't reach for the folder immediately, instead letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. David Kim shifted in his seat. Sharon clicked her pen repeatedly. Click, click, click. "On what grounds?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. Mark leaned back, a small smile playing at his lips. "Consistent underperformance. Your sales figures have been unacceptably low for the past quarter. You're ranking in the bottom 10th percentile of the region." The absurdity of the statement almost made me laugh. "That's impossible. I closed the Mitchell Industries deal last week alone. That's $1.2 million. I'm tracking at 180% of quota." "I'm afraid the numbers tell a different story." Mark opened his folder, pulling out a graph I didn't recognize. "As you can see here, your performance has been declining steadily. Multiple deals fallen through, client complaints, missed targets." I reached for the paper, but Mark pulled it back. "These will be kept for company records." "I want to see those numbers. I have access to the system. I can pull up my actual performance right now." I started to reach for my phone. "Your system access has been terminated as of 5 minutes ago," Sharon interjected, her voice mechanical, rehearsed. "Company policy for termination procedures." The trap revealed itself with stunning clarity. They'd locked me out before the meeting, ensuring I couldn't defend myself with real data. "This is insane," I said, abandoning diplomacy. "David, you sent me a congratulations email just last week about the Seattle expansion. You called me a stellar example of Silverstream excellence." David wouldn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his leather portfolio. "The decision has been made, Rachel. We need to think about what's best for the team." "The team?" I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. "The team that I've mentored, the deals I've shared, the accounts I've saved from churning, that team?" "Please remain professional," Mark said, though his satisfaction was barely concealed. "Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. You have 15 minutes. "What about my commission? The deal's in progress. The Watson Group presentation is tomorrow." I've been working on it for 2 months. All accounts will be transitioned immediately. Your commission for this quarter is forfeit due to termination for cause. Mark stood, buttoning his jacket. The Watson Group will be in capable hands. The pieces clicked into place. The Watson Group, a potential $5 million contract I'd been nurturing. Mark's nephew had joined the team 3 weeks ago, allegedly to shadow successful reps. Whose hands? Mark, your nephew's. His smile finally broke through completely. Brad has shown remarkable potential. He'll do well with the right opportunities. Sharon pushed another document across the table. This is your termination agreement. It includes a standard non-disparagement clause and confirms you'll return all company property immediately. I didn't touch it. I want my lawyer to review this. That's your right, Sharon said. But security is still required to escort you out now. Company policy. 2 security guards appeared at the door as if summoned by her words. Tom and Miguel, guys I'd shared elevator rides with for years, whose kids' names I knew. Tom couldn't look at me directly. 5 minutes to clear my desk, I said, not asking. The walk through the sales floor was a masterpiece of corporate humiliation. Conversations died as I passed. Some colleagues stared, others suddenly found their screens fascinating. Jennifer half stood from her desk, but I shook my head slightly. Don't get involved, don't make yourself a target. At my desk, I moved mechanically. Personal photos into my bag, my lucky coffee mug, the small succulent Jennifer had given me for my work anniversary. My hands shook as I picked up the framed photo of my parents, taken before Mom got sick. Time's up, Tom said quietly, genuinely apologetic. As the elevator descended, I caught a glimpse of the sales dashboard through the closing doors. My name was already gone, erased as if I'd never existed. But I knew those numbers. I'd screenshot them every Friday for my own records, a habit from my first sales job. The lobby's marble floors felt cold even through my shoes. The security guards walked me all the way to the parking garage, standing watch as I got into my car like I was some kind of criminal. It wasn't until I was 3 blocks away that I pulled over, my hands shaking too badly to drive. The rain hammered against the windshield, and I finally allowed myself to think the words. They'd erased me. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They hadn't erased the truth. The first week, I kept waking up at 6 a.m., muscle memory pulling me from sleep before remembering there was nowhere to go. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling of my 1-bedroom apartment, listening to the rain that seemed to never stop falling in Harborview that October. My savings account balance glowed on my laptop screen, $4,147. Enough for maybe 2 months if I cut everything non-essential. The unemployment office website timed out twice before I could complete my claim. Technical difficulties, it said, as if the universe was piling on the irony. Rach, you need to eat something. Megan Torres stood in my kitchen, having let herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago. We'd been friends since college, back when we both thought we'd conquer the corporate world together. She'd gone into marketing. I'd chosen sales. Now she was creative director at a boutique agency while I was... nothing. I'm not hungry, I said, though I hadn't eaten since yesterday's half can of soup. Megan pulled open my refrigerator, frowning at the emptiness. Okay, we're ordering Thai food and you're going to tell me exactly what happened. No bullshit. 2 hours later, surrounded by empty takeout containers, Megan's expression had shifted from concern to fury. This is illegal. It has to be. You can't just fabricate performance reviews. They can if I can't prove otherwise. I pushed pad thai around my plate. They locked me out of everything before the meeting. Email, sales database, CRM system, 8 years of work, gone. But you have evidence, right? Personal records? I gestured at my laptop, where I'd pulled up my folder of screenshots. Weekly dashboard captures, yeah. But Mark will say they're doctored, his word against mine. And he's got the company's backing. So fight back, get a lawyer. With what money? I laughed bitterly. Employment lawyers want retainers. 5 grand minimum. Even if I won, it could take years. Meanwhile, I'm blacklisted in the industry. Mark's probably already spreading his version of events. My phone buzzed. Another rejection email from a job application. Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to pursue other candidates. The 14th one this week. Megan grabbed my shoulders. Rachel Donovan, look at me. You're the woman who landed the impossible Boeing subsidiary deal, who saved Silverstream's biggest client from churning by flying to Chicago on Christmas Eve. You don't give up. That woman had a job, had a reputation. My voice cracked. I can't even get interviews. One recruiter actually told me she'd heard I was difficult to work with and couldn't handle pressure. Mark's narrative is already out there. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a haze of rejection and dwindling resources. I canceled my gym membership, then my streaming services, then started selling things on Facebook Marketplace. My ergonomic office chair went for $200. The standing desk for $150. Each sale felt like selling a piece of my professional identity. The apartment felt smaller every day. I'd catch myself pacing the same path, kitchen to living room to bedroom and back, like a caged animal. The walls seemed to press closer, especially at 3 a.m. when anxiety would claw me awake. Calculating how many days until rent was due, Jennifer texted occasionally at first. Thinking of you. Hope you're okay. Then the messages stopped. I understood. Association with the fired employee was career suicide. One particularly dark Thursday. I sat in my car outside Silverstream's building, watching my former colleagues leave for lunch. They looked so normal, so unaffected. Mark walked out with Brad, his nephew, both laughing at something on Brad's phone, probably celebrating the Watson Group deal that should have been mine. That night, Megan found me on my bathroom floor, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. I worked so hard, I gasped between sobs. I did everything right. I exceeded every target, every metric. How can they just erase that? Because they're counting on you feeling exactly like this, Megan said, holding me tight. Broken, defeated, too exhausted to fight back. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just disappear, move back to Ohio with my dad, take some retail job and forget I ever tried to be something more. Is that what your mom would say? The mention of my mother stopped my spiral. Mom, who'd fought cancer for 3 years with more grace and determination than anyone should have to muster. Who'd told me before she died. Baby, the truth always finds a way. Sometimes you just have to help it along. Megan stayed that night, sleeping on my couch like we were back in college. In the morning, she made coffee and said something that shifted everything. You know what? You're looking at this wrong. You're not trying to get your job back. You're not even trying to get revenge. You're trying to restore the truth. There's a difference. I stared at her over my mug. What do you mean? I mean, stop playing defense. They attacked you with lies, so go on offense with facts. You have those screenshots for a reason, right? For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. A tiny spark of the woman who'd conquered impossible sales targets. The woman who didn't accept no from clients or from life. I need to think, I said. Good, Megan replied. Because Rachel Donovan thinking is a dangerous thing for people who underestimate her. That afternoon, I opened a new folder on my laptop and named it Truth. Then I started organizing every piece of evidence I had, preparing for a battle Mark Ellison didn't see coming. The rain finally stopped that evening. Through my window, I could see a break in the clouds, the first glimpse of sky in weeks. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. 3 weeks into my unemployment, I couldn't sleep, scrolling mindlessly through old emails on my personal Gmail when I noticed something odd. My Silverstream account was gone, but I'd always been meticulous about BCCing my personal email on client correspondence, a habit from my first sales manager who'd said, always keep your own records. Companies have short memories when convenient. There it was, an email chain from 6 weeks ago. Mark had replied, all to a regional performance update, probably forgetting I was copied. His message to the executive team included an attachment. Q3 preliminary rankings, confidential. My hands trembled as I opened it. The Excel spreadsheet showed the real numbers. Rachel Donovan, number 2 in the region, 186% of quota. $3.7 million in closed deals. Below my name. Brad Ellison at 47, 32% of quota. $218,000 in revenue. But that wasn't the smoking gun. The smoking gun was the second tab in the spreadsheet, labeled Adjusted Projections. My numbers had been moved to a column titled Redistribution Pool, with a note, Personnel Changes, October Pipeline Reassignment. They'd planned it 6 weeks ago, before the Watson Group opportunity, before Brad's mysterious arrival, before the sudden performance issues. I kept digging. My personal email became an archaeological site, each old message potentially holding another piece of truth. I found forwarded client testimonials praising my work, dated proposals showing the deals I'd originated, even a screenshot I'd sent Megan of the sales dashboard showing me at number 1 for September. Then I remembered something else. Silverstream used a third-party commission tracking system, Comp Tracker. We could access it independently to verify our earnings. My login still worked. The system showed everything, every deal, every commission, every percentage point. I downloaded 5 years of data before they could think to cut this access too. The numbers were staggering. I'd generated $17.3 million in revenue over my tenure, earning the company profits that dwarfed my total compensation by a factor of 12. Holy shit, I whispered to my empty apartment. I switched to LinkedIn, using a Boolean search for former Silverstream employees. There were dozens who'd left in the past year, many from sales. I started messaging them carefully, casually. Hey, hope you're well at your new company. Quick question about your transition. Patricia Winters responded first. She'd been fired 9 months ago for performance issues despite being top 5 in sales. Then James Morrison, terminated for culture fit after questioning commission restructuring. Amanda Foster, let go for redundancy weeks after landing a major government contract. The pattern was clear. Mark had been systematically removing top performers who threatened his authority or his placement strategy for preferred employees. We were all replaced by younger, cheaper, more controllable versions, many with suspicious last names matching other executives. I created a spreadsheet of my own, names, dates, real performance numbers versus stated reasons for termination. The scope was breathtaking. 11 high performers eliminated. Their accounts redistributed to nephews, golf buddies' kids, and yes men. My phone rang at 3 a.m. Jennifer, calling from her personal cell. Don't say my name, she whispered. I'm in the office, couldn't sleep, came in to catch up on work. Rachel, they're deleting things from the shared drive. All your client files, proposals, even the testimonial folder. It's like they're erasing you existed. Can you? Already on it. Screenshots and downloads to my personal drive. But there's something else. I overheard Mark on Friday. He's telling the Watson Group that you had a breakdown, that you were unstable. He's poisoning your reputation to ensure you can't go to competitors. My anger crystallized into something colder, sharper. Jennifer, be careful. Don't risk your job for me. Some things are worth the risk. Check your email in an hour. She sent me everything she could safely capture. Meeting notes where Mark explicitly stated his intention to refresh the team with hungrier talent. Budget documents showing the real allocation of resources, top performers getting fewer leads while his favorites received premium accounts. But the crown jewel was a recorded Zoom call Jennifer had saved from a leadership strategy session. Legal in Oregon, single-party consent state. Mark's voice, clear as day. Sometimes you have to manufacture a narrative. Rachel's too established, too independent. We need soldiers, not generals. Make the numbers tell the story we need. I sat back in my desk chair, one of the few pieces I hadn't sold yet, and felt the shift. This wasn't just about my wrongful termination anymore. This was systematic fraud, manipulation of shareholder resources, and violation of numerous employment laws. The question was what to do with it. A lawsuit would take years and might end in a settlement with an NDA. Media might not care about one person's firing. But there was another way. Something more immediate and impossible to silence. I pulled up Silverstream's investor relations page. Their quarterly earnings call was in 2 weeks. Major clients would be attending the annual partnership summit next month. The industry conference where Mark was scheduled to speak about building high-performance sales teams was in 3 weeks. I opened a new document and began typing. An open letter to the Silverstream community. The real numbers don't lie. My phone buzzed. Megan had texted. Saw you active on LinkedIn at 4 a.m. You're plotting something? Need help? I texted back. Remember when you said I should go on offense? I'm ready, but I'll need your marketing expertise. Finally, the Rachel Donovan I know is back. What's the plan? I looked at my screen full of evidence, the truth laid out in undeniable black and white. We're going to show everyone the real numbers, all of them. We need to be surgical about this, Megan said, spreading printed pages across my living room floor like a general planning an invasion. One wrong move and they'll bury you with lawyers. It was Tuesday afternoon, day 4 of our planning. My apartment had transformed into a war room. Whiteboards borrowed from Megan's office covered the walls, filled with timelines, contact lists, and strategy notes. My laptop stayed hot from constant use, cross-referencing data and building our case. I've consulted with my friend at the Labor Bureau, I said, ending another phone call. What Mark did definitely violates several statutes, but proving intentional fraud requires demonstrating pattern and practice. One person's story isn't enough. But 11 people's stories? That's a pattern. I'd spent the weekend conducting careful interviews with the terminated employees I'd found. Each conversation revealed another piece of Mark's playbook. Patricia had been fired the week before her stock options vested. James was terminated 2 days after questioning why his largest client had been reassigned to Mark's nephew. Amanda's dismissal came right after she'd discovered discrepancies in the commission structure. The earnings call is in 10 days, Megan noted, circling the date on our timeline. That's our first window, but we can't just dump this publicly without preparation. Agreed. I've been thinking about the approach. I pulled up a document I'd been refining. Phase 1. Build an undeniable evidence package. Not just my story, but everyone's with supporting documentation. Phase 2. Strategic distribution to key stakeholders who can't ignore it. Phase 3. Public revelation at maximum impact moment. The partnership summit, Megan said immediately. Mark's presenting on day 2. The room will be full of Silverstream's biggest clients, industry journalists, and the entire C-suite. I nodded. But we need insurance. If we only rely on one moment, they could shut us down. We need multiple pressure points. My phone rang. Patricia Winters. Rachel, I just got an interesting call, she said without preamble. A recruiter reached out saying Silverstream is urgently trying to fill several senior sales positions. They're offering 20% above market rate and signing bonuses. They're desperate. Because they fired all their top performers, I muttered. Patricia, would you be willing to go on record? Real name, real story? After what they did to me, absolutely. But I want others involved too. Safety in numbers. Within 48 hours, I had 7 former employees committed to going public. We created a shared secure document where everyone could upload their evidence, performance reviews, sales numbers, termination letters, recorded conversations where legal. The pattern was damning. Mark's restructuring had cost Silverstream over $30 million in lost deals and client churn, all to install his network of underperforming cronies. The real numbers painted a picture of corporate malfeasance that would make shareholders' blood boil. We need a lawyer, Megan said during one late-night session. Not to file suit, but to ensure we're protected when we go public. I'd been avoiding this, knowing the cost. I can't afford. Already handled. She slid a business card across the table. Thomas Chen at Chen & Associates. He specializes in whistleblower protection and employment law. He's taking your case pro bono. What? Why? Because his sister was one of Mark's victims 2 years ago at his previous company. He's been waiting for someone to stand up. I met with Thomas the next day. His office was modest, but his reputation was sterling. He reviewed our evidence for 3 hours, occasionally whistling low at particularly damaging revelations. "This is solid," he said finally. "But you need to be prepared. They'll come at you hard once this goes public. Threats of lawsuits, character assassination, the works. They already assassinated my character. I have nothing left to lose. You have the truth. That's everything." He leaned forward. "Here's what I recommend. File a formal complaint with the Department of Labor tomorrow. That creates a legal record and triggers whistleblower protections. Then execute your public strategy. I'll handle any legal pushback." That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time from anticipation rather than despair. I refined our presentation, a devastating 15-slide deck that told the story in pure data. No emotions, no accusations, just numbers and facts that spoke louder than any rhetoric could. Slide 7 was my favorite. A simple graph showing the correlation between terminations of top performers and the subsequent revenue drop in their territories. The line plummeted like a cliff dive. Jennifer texted at midnight. "Brad just lost the Watson Group deal. They pulled out citing concerns about account management stability. Mark is furious, demanding to know how they found out about the rep changes." I smiled in the darkness. I might have sent an anonymous tip to Watson's procurement team about the musical chairs in their account management. Just a concerned industry observer noting some public LinkedIn updates. "Also," Jennifer continued, "rumor is the board is asking questions about Q4 projections. They're way under target." Of course they were. You can't fire your best people and expect the numbers to maintain themselves. Mark was learning what every real sales leader knows. Talent isn't replaceable with nepotism. Megan arrived the next morning with coffee and a grin. "I've got 5 industry bloggers interested in the story. They're waiting for your signal. Also, remember that journalist who covered the TechCorp scandal last year? She wants an exclusive interview after you go public." "After," I emphasized. "This has to hit all at once. No leaks that give them time to spin." My phone buzzed with an email from Thomas Chen. "Department of Labor complaint filed. Whistleblower protections now active. Green light to proceed with public disclosure." I looked at Megan, then at my wall of evidence, then at the calendar. 6 days until the partnership summit. "Let's finalize the timeline," I said, pulling up a new document. Every email, every post, every revelation timed to the minute. We get one shot at this. What about Mark? He'll be blindsided. I thought about the humiliation of being escorted out, the weeks of despair, the systematic destruction of everything I'd built. Good. He'll know exactly how it feels to watch your career implode in public while everyone watches. We worked until dawn, perfecting every detail. The plan was intricate, comprehensive, and unstoppable. The real numbers were about to have their day. The partnership summit was held at the Riverside Convention Center, a gleaming structure of glass and steel that hosted Harborview's biggest corporate events. I arrived at 7 a.m., 2 hours before Mark's keynote, wearing my best suit, the one I'd saved for closing major deals. Today would be the biggest close of my life. Megan was already in position near the registration desk, laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She gave me a subtle nod. Phase 1 was complete. Every attendee would find a mysterious USB drive in their welcome packet, labeled simply, "The Truth About Silverstream's Numbers." I'd spent $1,800 of my dwindling savings on those drives, but they contained everything. The real performance data, the termination patterns, the recorded conversations, and testimonials from 11 wrongfully terminated employees. More importantly, they included side-by-side comparisons of reported numbers versus actual performance metrics. At 8:30 a.m., I walked into the main auditorium. 500 seats faced a massive screen where Mark would soon present building high-performance sales teams through strategic leadership. The irony was almost poetic. My phone vibrated. Jennifer. "He's here, green room." Reviewing slides. I positioned myself in the back row, Center aisle, perfect sightline to both the stage and the exits. Around me, attendees filed in, clients I'd worked with, competitors who knew my reputation, industry analysts who shaped market perception. Many recognized me, offering surprised nods. The terminated employee wasn't supposed to be here. At 8:45 a.m., Megan executed Phase 2, a coordinated email blast to every attendee's registered address with the subject line, "What Silverstream doesn't want you to know. Live revelation at 9:15 a.m." The email contained a link to a website we'd built, Truth About Silverstream. Com. The site was elegant, professional, and devastating. Real numbers, real stories, real evidence. A countdown timer showed 30 minutes until full documentation release. I watched phones light up around the auditorium. Whispers started, heads turned. People began opening laptops. The energy shifted from anticipation to curiosity to concern. At 9 a.m. sharp, Mark strode onto the stage, his confidence radiating like armor. The massive screen behind him displayed his title slide, "Excellence Through Leadership, the Silverstream Way." "Good morning, partners and colleagues," he began, his voice smooth as ever. "Today, I'll share how we've transformed Silverstream's sales organization into a performance powerhouse." Someone in the third row raised their hand. "Mr. Ellison, can you comment on the USB drives in our packets?" Mark's smile flickered. "I'm not aware of any USB drives. Let's focus on the presentation. It shows you fired your top performers and replaced them with underqualified relatives." The person continued, "The data is quite comprehensive." The whispers became murmurs. Mark's jaw tightened. "I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Our personnel decisions are always performance-based." That was my cue. I stood up. "Performance-based?" My voice carried across the auditorium. "Then explain why you fired 11 top performers who collectively generated $47 million in revenue last year." Every head swiveled. Mark went pale, recognizing me. "Security," he said into his lapel mic. "We have a disruption." "I'm a registered attendee," I announced, holding up my badge. "Paid registration, just like everyone else, and I have something to share." I pulled out my phone and cast it to the main screen, a feature they'd forgotten to disable for attendees with presentation privileges. My slides replaced Mark's. "Let me show you the real numbers." Slide 1. My actual performance metrics versus the fabricated ones used to justify my termination. Gasps rippled through the audience. Slide 2. The pattern of terminations correlating with installation of underperforming relatives and friends. The nephew with 32% quota attainment replacing the rep with 186%. Slide 3. The recorded conversation. Mark's voice filled the auditorium. "Sometimes you have to manufacture a narrative. Rachel's too established, too independent. We need soldiers, not generals." Security guards appeared at the exits but seemed unsure what to do. I wasn't violent, wasn't threatening. I was presenting data. Mark grabbed the microphone. "This is a disgruntled former employee spreading lies." "Then let's hear from the others," I said. The main doors opened. Patricia, James, Amanda, and 4 other terminated employees walked in, all wearing badges, all legitimate attendees. They spread across the auditorium, standing like witnesses at a trial. "We're all liars," Patricia called out. "All 11 of us who outperformed our quotas." The Watson Group representative stood up in the 5th row. "Mr. Ellison, we need an explanation. We were told Ms. Donovan left due to performance issues, but this data shows she was your top performer when we were reassigned to your nephew, who subsequently lost our business." Other clients began standing, voicing similar concerns. The PowerPoint behind Mark cycled through evidence, emails, spreadsheets, testimonials, financial impact assessments, $30 million in lost revenue, 200% turnover in formerly stable territories. Client satisfaction scores plummeting from 94% to 61%. David Kim. The VP, who'd sat silent during my termination, rose from the front row. His face was stone. "Mark, we need to discuss this immediately." Offstage. "This is an ambush," Mark protested, but his voice had lost its authority. "These are fabrications." "The Department of Labor doesn't think so," I announced. "They received formal whistleblower complaints from all of us yesterday." "With documentation?" The auditorium erupted, journalists typing furiously, clients demanding answers, Silverstream executives huddling in panicked clusters. Someone started live streaming. The hashtag #WatchSilverstreamScandal began trending before Mark even left the stage. But I wasn't done. The final slide appeared, a simple message. The truth doesn't need manipulation, performance doesn't lie, and real leaders don't destroy talent to protect their ego. Every number presented today is verified and available at truthaboutsilverstream.com. The room exploded in applause, not for entertainment, but for justice served. Mark stood frozen at the podium, his carefully crafted image crumbling in real time. Security finally approached me, but David Kim waved them off. "Let her leave on her own. We have bigger problems." I walked down the center aisle, my heels clicking with the same rhythm as that day I'd been escorted out. But this time, I was leaving on my terms, with my truth told and my reputation not just restored, but elevated. As I reached the door, I turned back. Mark was being escorted off stage by senior executives, his presentation abandoned, his future at Silverstream evaporating. "The real numbers don't lie, Mark," I called out. They never did. The next 48 hours unfolded like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. I watched it all from my apartment, laptop open to multiple news sites, phone buzzing nonstop with calls I wasn't ready to answer yet. The first domino fell Tuesday morning when Silverstream's stock price dropped 18% at market open. The board called an emergency meeting that lasted 9 hours. Jennifer, still on the inside, fed me updates through encrypted messages. Mark's in the boardroom, alone, no allies left. CEO just arrived, looking furious. Head of HR just walked out crying. By Tuesday afternoon, the second domino toppled. The Seattle Times published an exposé, Silverstream's Systematic Talent Purge, How One Executive's Nepotism Cost Millions. The journalist had done her homework, interviewing clients who'd pulled contracts, employees who'd witnessed the favoritism, even former board members questioning oversight. Mark tried to fight back. His lawyer issued a statement calling my presentation a coordinated attack full of manipulated data and disgruntled former employees seeking revenge. But numbers don't lie. And every journalist who fact-checked our evidence found it bulletproof. Wednesday brought the third domino. The Department of Labor announced a formal investigation into Silverstream's employment practices. They'd frozen all executive bonuses pending review. Then came the shareholder lawsuit, filed by a pension fund that had lost millions on Silverstream stock. But the killing blow came Wednesday evening. Someone leaked Mark's personnel file, not me. Though I had my suspicions about David Kim's involvement, it revealed Mark had done this before at 2 previous companies, each time leaving just ahead of investigations. The pattern was undeniable. Thursday morning, 10 a.m., I was making coffee when the news broke. Breaking: Silverstream Technologies terminates Regional Director Mark Ellison for cause. CEO announces comprehensive reform package. I set down my mug and actually laughed. Not bitter, not angry, but genuinely amused at the corporate speak. Terminated for cause. The same words they'd used on me. My phone rang. David Kim. "Rachel, I owe you an apology." He began without preamble. "I knew something was wrong during your termination, but I was cowardly. I chose politics over principles. Why are you calling, David? The board wants to meet with you. All of you, actually. The 11 terminated employees. They're proposing settlements, full reinstatement offers, back pay with interest, and..." He paused. "They want you to consider leading a new sales integrity task force. I don't want my job back. I understand. But please, hear them out. The company needs rebuilding, and you've proven you have the courage to hold leadership accountable. I told him I'd think about it, but I already knew my answer. That afternoon, Mark's final humiliation played out publicly. Security escorted him from the building, the same security who'd walked me out 6 weeks earlier. Someone filmed it, because of course they did. But unlike my silent, dignified exit, Mark was ranting, threatening lawsuits, claiming conspiracy. The video went viral within hours. Mark Ellipson meltdown trending nationwide. His LinkedIn profile disappeared by evening. His speaking engagements canceled. His reputation, so carefully cultivated, lay in ruins. Patricia called that evening. Did you see? 3 other companies are investigating whether Mark pulled the same thing there. He's finished. Completely finished. How do you feel about it? I asked. Vindicated, but also empty? Like, we won. But what did we really win? I understood. Revenge, even justified, leaves a strange aftertaste. Friday brought unexpected allies. 5 current Silverstream employees reached out, sharing their own stories of Mark's manipulation. The new acting regional director, Jennifer, promoted in the emergency restructuring, called to thank me. You saved the company, she said. Revenue was about to crater. Major clients were planning to leave. You exposed the cancer before it killed us. But the sweetest moment came Friday evening. An email from the Watson Group. Ms. Donovan. We were deeply disturbed to learn of the circumstances surrounding your departure from Silverstream. Your integrity in exposing the truth, despite personal cost, exemplifies the kind of leadership we value. We'd like to discuss bringing you on as our Senior Vendor Relations Director. The role would involve ensuring our partners maintain the ethical standards we expect. Compensation package attached. The number made me sit down. It was double my Silverstream salary. Megan arrived with champagne. You did it. You absolutely destroyed him. I didn't destroy him, I corrected, pouring 2 glasses. He destroyed himself. I just made sure everyone could see it happening. We clinked glasses as my phone lit up with more messages. Interview requests from CNBC, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal. Speaking invitations from sales conferences. A book agent asking if I'd considered writing about corporate accountability. But the message that mattered most came from an unknown number. Thank you for being brave. I was fired from my last job for similar reasons but was too scared to fight back. You've inspired me to speak up. A fellow survivor. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about my revenge or Mark's downfall. It was about every person who'd been crushed by corporate machinery. Told their truth didn't matter, made to feel powerless against those with titles and connections. Mark had thought he could erase me, reduce my 8 years of excellence to a footnote in a fabricated narrative. Instead, his name would forever be linked to one of the most spectacular corporate scandals in tech history. Every Google search of Mark Ellison would surface articles about fraud, nepotism, and his screaming, undignified exit from a building he once ruled. The ultimate irony, if he'd just let me leave quietly, taken my clients through merit rather than manipulation, he might have survived. But hubris demanded total destruction of threats, and in trying to destroy me, he'd authored his own ending. Looking back, that moment in the convention center, watching Mark's world implode while mine rebuilt itself, was the perfect culmination. Not because I'd won, but because the truth had. The numbers never lied. They never do. The Monday morning after Mark's termination, I stood outside Silverstream Technologies one last time, not to go in, but to meet the others. Patricia, James, Amanda, and the rest of our group. We'd agreed to hear the board's settlement offer together, united as we'd been in exposing the truth. The boardroom felt different this time. We sat on the side that had once held my executioners, while the executives faced us like defendants awaiting verdict. The CEO himself, Robert Hastings, led the discussion. We failed you, he began. No corporate doublespeak, just admission. The systems that should have protected merit and integrity were corrupted. We're prepared to offer full reinstatement, back pay with 50% penalties, and senior positions in a restructured organization. The offers were generous. Patricia would become VP of Sales Excellence. James would lead a new ethics committee. Amanda would oversee client relations. And me? They wanted me as Chief Revenue Officer, replacing not just Mark, but his entire corrupted structure. I looked at the others, saw them considering, calculating. Then I stood. I appreciate the offer, but I decline. Gasps around the table. Robert leaned forward. May we ask why? Because Silverstream taught me something valuable. My worth isn't determined by any company's recognition. You needed a public catastrophe to see what was always there, our real numbers, our real value. I won't wait for that validation anymore. I pulled out the Watson Group's offer letter. I've accepted a position where my first task is to audit vendor integrity, to ensure other companies don't do what Silverstream did. That's my mission now. Patricia stood next. I'm also declining. I'm starting my own consulting firm, helping terminated employees fight back against wrongful dismissals. One by one, most of us declined. We'd found our power outside their walls, and no amount of money could make us surrender it again. As we left the building, Jennifer caught up with me in the lobby. Now regional director, she wore the title well. You know what the irony is, she said. If Mark had just managed with integrity, if he'd recognized and rewarded real performance, Silverstream would be unstoppable right now. Instead, we're rebuilding from rubble. Maybe that's what needed to happen, I replied. Sometimes systems need to burn before they can be reformed. 3 months later, I sat in my new office at Watson Group, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Mount Rainier. My team had just finished an audit that identified 2 vendors inflating their performance metrics. We'd saved Watson millions and protected dozens of employees from being scapegoated for manufactured failures. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Former Silverstream executive Mark Ellison charged with securities fraud. The investigation had uncovered more than just employment violations. He'd been manipulating sales reports to inflate his division's value while planning to short the stock before the truth emerged. Federal charges, potential prison time. I didn't celebrate. Didn't share the article, just archived it and moved on to my next meeting. That evening, Megan and I met for our regular dinner at the waterfront restaurant where we'd planned the entire operation. She raised her wine glass. To Rachel Donovan, who proved that one person with the truth can bring down an empire of lies. To the truth itself, I countered. And to everyone who's ever been told their story doesn't matter. As I drove home that night, I thought about the journey. 6 weeks of despair had transformed into something powerful. Not just revenge, though I won't lie. Watching Mark's downfall was satisfying, but revelation. I'd discovered that my value wasn't dependent on any company's recognition. My worth was in my work, my integrity, my refusal to let lies stand as truth. The Rachel who'd been escorted out of Silverstream would have done anything to get her job back, to regain that external validation. The Rachel driving home that night knew better. Some things are worth more than any position or paycheck, like the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and know you stood up when it mattered. My phone lit up with a LinkedIn notification, another message from someone who'd been wrongfully terminated, asking for advice. I'd been getting dozens of these weekly. At some point, I'd need to write that book, create that roadmap for others facing the same injustice. But tonight, I simply pulled into my driveway, a new house, bought with my signing bonus, and smiled. The rain had stopped weeks ago, and Harborview's sky was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Mark Ellison thought he could erase me with fabricated numbers and institutional power. Instead, he taught me the most valuable lesson of my career. When someone tries to bury you with lies, you don't just dig yourself out, you excavate the entire foundation of their deception and let the world see what's underneath. The real numbers don't lie. They never have. They never will. And sometimes that's all the revenge you need. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced a similar situation at work? How did you handle it? Your experiences matter, and I'd love to hear them in the comments below.